Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, and welcome to the Twin Peaks Thought of the Day for Saturday, July 22nd, 2017. My guests today are Hal.
Hey Cameron, hey, how's it going? Hey Mandy.
It's great to have you here. And as well, we have Mandy. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Hi.
So let's get to some recent Twin Peaks news that is going on currently. As we know, Twin Peaks had a big panel in Hall H of Comic-Con yesterday, and then at 10 o'clock they did the screening for episode or part 11 for the live audience.
Do they even have comic books at Comic Con anymore? It's like, really? It's all Hollywood.
It's a dying breed. I've had so many people tell me that in the past too, that are big comic collectors. Like, we don't even go down there anymore because there's hardly any comic books. Although, there are like individual sellers and things like that, but they don't really advertise them on the main stage.
Right.
But yeah, so apparently last night's screening was a big success. There were a lot of people trying to get in. The doors were locked. And from what I hear, even the actors were locked out of the screening until they opened the doors for people to come in, which is hilarious. I can only imagine Everett McGill and James Marshall and everyone just standing there, just patiently waiting to get in to see this new episode. But I think it's a big success because they screened it for 5,000 people last night, and no spoilers have gotten out.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Because if it was a Game of Thrones screening, there'd be spoilers all over the internet.
Yeah.
I saw that on Twitter today. Somebody said the difference between Twin Peaks and Game of Thrones fans is Twin Peaks fans, don't really spoil it for everybody, and Game of Thrones fans just are spoiling it as the episode is airing.
We're full of secrets.
So, all right, well, let's talk about the panel they did in Hall H. Variety posted an article by Maureen Ryan, an article titled 10 Things We Learned at the Twin Peaks Comic-Con panel. So if you weren't there, and chances are you weren't there, here are 10 things that they learned. Number one, there would be no Lost without Twin Peaks. Do you believe that?
Damon Lindelof has been pretty upfront by saying that, it changed his life watching it with his dad when he was like 16 years old. I liked his shirt. I even tracked down a shirt online so you can buy that shirt he had on, the damn fine coffee and the Twin Peaks font. That was a cool shirt.
The thing is that I really like Damon Lindelof a lot. But he's one of those writer-producer guys that show up on a lot of movie and TV featurettes and discuss how that work or that artist influenced his life. So it's hard for me. While I do believe Twin Peaks obviously played an influence, I do think that it's hard for me to believe everybody when they say that every single person, every single work of art was ever an influence on them, because in a way it's a way of getting onto these featurettes as well.
I think with Lindelof, he's successful enough where he doesn't need to get that exposure necessarily. And also he's been really, really consistent about his love of Twin Peaks. So I would have to say in this case, he's pretty authentic in that. And he is a super geek. He is. He's just, that's who he is,
Right.
So I believe it.
All I know is that when I watch the Lost featurettes, I never hear anything about Twin Peaks in anything, and I've watched most of the bonus material on all those Blu-ray sets. What I do hear is Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. That this is not a TV show about a Luke Skywalker. It's a TV show about 17 Luke Skywalkers, and they're all on the hero's journey. So that's why I bring it up. It's because I've never heard, yes, us as fans discuss Twin Peaks in terms of Lost, but I've never heard the creators or any of the writers reference Twin Peaks when it comes to Lost in the actual bonus materials of the show itself.
Maybe that's true. But I was I was a Lost freak, so I followed. I listened to every podcast that Lindelof and Hughes did after the shows, and they referenced it a couple of times. And in print interviews I've seen with Damon Lindelof, he's talked about it. And whenever he's asked about it, he raves. So I think he's authentic.
Well, I do too. I'm just pointing out the fact that there are people, there are opportunist writer producers out there that just if it's anything that they can grab onto that's popular and make a name for themselves in the process, as well, and kind of boost them. But I mean, Carlton Cuse, his I wouldn't say co-creator, but his co-conspirator in terms of Lost from midway through season 1 all the way to the end. He did Bates Motel, and Bates Motel, of course, was yes, it's based on Psycho, but a lot of it was an homage to Twin Peaks. Yeah,
and he's been upfront about that too.
He has been incredibly upfront about that, and that's respectful. It's not like what was it, M. Night Shyamalan doing Wayward Pines or something?
No doubt.
We're just like, we're gonna just rip this off.
Or Northern Exposure that ripped it off and then slammed it too in that one episode where they did like a Twin Peaks parody, and the cameras came in and they're like, "This is weird, isn't it?" and stuff. They were like making fun of it as they were ripping it off.
That's funny. Mandy, were you a Lost fan?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
you'd like it. It's good.
I kept hearing a lot of things about how it was, similar to Twin Peaks and all this stuff, and I've always been very protective of Twin Peaks, so I don't like it when people rip things off. So I did not watch it. And with Wayward Pines, I actually liked, but the first couple episodes, I was like, a ceiling fan, really? That's what you're gonna do? So it irked me, and then I dropped my guard and actually just watched it, and it was pretty decent. So, but Lost, I never got into.
I don't think Lost was a rip-off of it. I think it was just that he was influenced in the way that you could do unorthodox storytelling and pretty much do anything you wanted that was strange and a unique way to tell stories and stuff is what the influence on Lost was. I thought Lost was kind of a unique thing all its own.
Where Lost was successful in terms of being like Twin Peaks was that it left you with a lot of questions, and then you couldn't wait until next week's episode.
Right.
Okay.
And like the guy that created The Sopranos has also cited Twin Peaks as a major influence, but you don't really, there's no ripoff in The Sopranos, but there was things like, there was dream sequences and things where like the one character saw this fish coming at him and stuff like that. And he said, that's the stuff that, where Twin Peaks, he felt as a writer allowed him to do that stuff on TV where they hadn't considered that before, So that's how it influenced him.
Whereas like Rob Thomas, who created Veronica Mars and iZombie, he's come out against Twin Peaks saying that, Veronica Mars season 1 wasn't going to fall into that trappings that Twin Peaks did. We were going to solve our mystery murder at the end of season 1. And I was like, well, that's not really fair because your Veronica Mars season 1 was 22 episodes. And, they solved Laura's murder at the end of episode 16. So it took him, 6 more episodes to solve that mystery. And I don't even count Twin Peaks season 1 as being, I mean, it is season 1, but it's not really, it's like a British series. You know what I mean? It's so short and small and condensed. It's not even a real season.
Right, it was like a summer replacement show until it hit big,
Right. It's just kind of like it was almost like an experiment.
Yeah.
only one that doesn't burst out of your glass and eat you alive.
And it's also like the guy with Veronica Mars, I'm a big Beatles fan. It's like, but and the Beatles has major influence on every band. That's why I wanted to pick up a guitar, but they also taught people how not to do things, how not to sell their merchandising for $10,000, how not to screw up their record label and stuff like that. And how to stay together and do solo projects rather than having to break up. It's like they also influence them on how not to do things, but that's what innovators do. They do things in an original way, and then we learn from their pluses and minuses.
Exactly. But yeah, like I was saying with Lost, I think it was having a bunch of questions, making us can't wait for the next week. But I don't think in terms of the storytelling, I don't think Lost and Twin Peaks have anything to do with each other, because Lost with the flashbacks, flash forwards, flash sideways, whatever you want to say, Twin Peaks never utilized anything like that.
No.
So in terms of storytelling, I don't think it has anything to do with one another, but just in terms of making people get hyped for the mysteries and things like that, and a lot of people complained about Lost, like, well, they didn't solve anything. Let me tell you something. They solved all the big stuff, I felt. Right. And then the little stuff was either stuff that you could infer and figure out yourself, or it was just one of those mysterious things that you just were like, well, life's mysterious.
That's exactly what you're going to get with Twin Peaks too, and always have. They're never going to really give you definitive answers, because that's like life. It's a mystery.
Well,
let the mystery be.
Let me ask you this: do you think that with this current series, that when it's over, do you think it's going to be like Lost in terms of, well, the big questions, the big things, the overarching story of this will be somewhat finalized, but obviously there's just going to be a bunch of little things here and there that, like a lot of Lynch's work, you just have to accept or just not question too much.
I think they may give us answers to riddles, like the owls are not what they seem, may become clearer in what that exactly means. But I think some of the larger things, like what's the nature of Bob, what's the true definitive origin of the black and white lodges and stuff, I think that's going to be left to ponder, because it's too hard to say this is what it means, and Lynch doesn't like to do that anyway, and that's why we love the show, because we have our own interpretations of it.
Right. Yeah, Mandy, you were talking about you're very protective of Twin Peaks, so it's hard for you to watch stuff that kind of utilizes a lot of those elements. I gotta tell you, this is why was it 93 or so, I didn't go anywhere near the X-Files.
Me neither.
And it wasn't because like, oh, I was against the X-Files. I was so heartbroken that Twin Peaks was over, that this idea of doing an FBI show where they were going to be investigating paranormal stuff, and it had David Duchovny in it. I was like, I can't do it. I can't.
I watched the X-Files, but I was resentful of it in that same way. I resented its success, after Twin Peaks' failure.
Yeah. And one show that was quirky like that was American Gothic, and I really liked that one. That was incredible. If you watch it in the proper sequence, the DVD release is a whole other show because it was ridiculous, but loved what they did with that. I loved their arcs, and I loved the story, and I liked the acting. Like, everything about that story kind of made me feel, okay, this is a good replacement, or a continuation, but I couldn't get on with X-Files. And then of course American Gothic was abruptly canceled because nobody could get it. But
remember that?
But yeah, I really like that one.
Remember that other series, I think the worst one, because it came like right after Wild Palms. Do you remember that? That was another one that said, we're going to solve it all. We're going to do a 6-episode miniseries or whatever. And who was the director on that, or who was the executive?
Well, Oliver Stone, executive.
Oliver Stone, right?
But it was James Belushi who was the star.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I didn't watch it. That was another one where I'm just going, no, I'm not gonna fall for it.
Right. All right. Moving on with this Variety article. Number 4 says, and I understand I'm bouncing around. I'll post the article in the link below if you want to read the whole thing. Number 4 says Naomi Watts only got her scenes with Dougie before the cameras rolled, so she had no idea about her arc. Lynch was just like, here's the new scene.
That's true of everybody there except for Kyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's shocking to me. It's like that's kind of like the way he worked a little bit with Inland Empire too. He'd write the scene the night before, but obviously this script was written, but he would only give people the scenes as they were needed. I think that's listen, I think that shows how amazing these actors are, that they're able to pull off anything that makes any sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I understand like wanting to be in the moment. But that's that's a risky thing to do. To just be like, here, this is an incredibly important show to an incredibly amount of people, but we're just gonna. I understand Lynch likes to, find that magic in the moment, but that's putting a lot on the risk table, don't you think?
Well, all of the actors say how much they trust him and are willing to go for it because they know that they're making art and he's got a unique vision, so they trust that. And Matthew Lillard on the Comic-Con panel said pretty much the same thing, and he'd never watched the original series, so he came in and they did his scenes there in like 1 or 2 takes. He said, and he had that long monologue, and the script just said, and then he becomes hysterical, and it's like that's so difficult to do, but God, the result is great, and they're right to trust Lynch.
But Mark Frost did kind of talk to Matthew Lillard a little bit about the scene. He didn't get anything out of Lynch, but Frost told him a little bit about where he should be coming from.
Yeah, but like he said that he didn't know, until the show aired that others were watching him. He had no idea that would cut in and out of people were watching him.
As I said the other day, Matthew Lillard told his wife in real life that he wasn't even probably going to be into in the series itself till part 12, and so he said he was shocked that he was in part 1.
Right.
So does that in a way tip their hand or tip his hand about the series in terms of chronology? We will discuss this later in the episode, today's episode. But there's some actors in the new Twin Peaks. Was it Kimmy Robertson that said that doesn't even want to watch the series until it's all over. They're gonna then just binge watch it. So there's some people not even watching it as it goes on. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Naomi Watts, her and Laura Dern kept pitching ideas to David Lynch about a movie or something, and then she basically pestered him about playing a role in the new Twin Peaks when she got wind that he was going to do that. So
yeah, they said they go over for coffee with him, and they talk about other stuff, and then it's like, hey, why don't you hire me for something? They always drop the hints.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, actually, Tim Roth is one of those actors that says that he's not watched the new series yet. So
yeah, he said he's gonna wait till it's over and then watch all 3 seasons and Fire Walk with Me with his kids.
But when Matthew Lillard said that he hadn't seen the previous seasons, I was fine with that because his character has nothing to do with seasons 1 and 2.
That's right. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Now, if he was playing, Wyndham Earl or something, I would hope he had seen it. Let's see here. An audience member who had never seen Twin Peaks asked the cast to describe it in a nutshell. Kyle MacLachlan said, "Just throw the nut away and keep the shell."
Yeah.
So not a lot happened in that panel.
No. 10 things we learned, not much.
not much. Yeah. And you know what? I honestly think it's done for publicity, right? Because it's very unfair. I think it's incredibly unfair to I know the actors love it, but I'm just saying as a fan, I just think it's unfair to have those actors get up on stage where they can say nothing. I mean, we're halfway through the new series. I understand it's Comic-Con. They can't move Comic-Con later to accommodate Twin Peaks' schedule. But it's like, why even have a panel if they can't even talk? It's just basically, pictures and publicity and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's just promotion, keeping it front of mind as much as possible, blasting through the noise of all the other series that vie for your attention. And, but it does get, as fans like we are, where we want to see everything and we can't wait to see the video of it. You're getting the same old stories over and over again, how Kyle read the script and how he was all in and he'd do anything for David, and then they tell the James Belushi story about him ad-libbing out of turn, and that the same old stories keep cropping up. I did like Naomi Watts did reference her rabbits thing, because they're talking about how they do anything for Lynch. She goes, "I'll even put on a bunny suit." People are like, "Huh?" And she's going, "Oh, it was a previous project," and we're all going, "Rabbits."
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Rabbit. She was in Inland Empire as the rabbit. So Yeah, did you see that panel?
Yeah, I watched it this morning, and I felt bad for Everett McGill. Like people like Everett McGill and James Marshall too, to a smaller extent, but like we haven't seen Ed at all. So he literally has nothing to talk about because he has shot scenes, and we've had no inkling as to what they are, where they're placed, nothing. So he's just kind of hanging out there, and I like his story of how the magical stars aligned and David Lynch rings this telephone that's never in use, kind of thing. But yeah, the panel itself was it was awkward and um, uh, just unfortunate because, again, they can't talk about anything. I love regular Comic-Con panels when people can actually discuss stories and see previews and special trailers and stuff. And it was just the guys saying, "Hey, what's up? We're here. Cool. Okay, see ya."
I was surprised nobody asked whether, what their feelings were as far as a season 4 potential, whether they had any feel for that.
Well, here's the thing. There were a swell, I say, or as David Lynch would say, there was a wind.
Before, a wind.
Yeah, before the panel happened, that they were going to announce a season 4 at the panel.
That would have been spectacular.
And that didn't happen.
Nope.
So I don't think they were going to. And honestly, I don't think we're going to get it.
I don't see that happening.
And I don't want to know either. I don't want to know until this is over, because that's going to allude that there's something that doesn't wrap up properly here. And we're kind of, I know I'm talking about expectations, but we're kind of walking into this thing as an 18-hour movie with no thought of a sequel or a second part. So I want to wait till the very, very end and then surprise us again and say, hey, we're coming back.
But at least we know that the 18-hour movie is a complete work, whether there's a season 4 or not. So it's not like they would shift gears based on whether they get renewed or not,
Yeah.
Right. I just, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of torn on it because I want it to go as long as they want it to go. But I don't want them to feel pressured into it. But I don't think that they are getting that pressure from, I just get that feeling that Showtime they're happy, but they're happy to just have it go away too.
Well, I don't know. They may be waiting to see what the reaction is once it's all aired.
Right.
Because right now there's this lull and people are frustrated with the Dougie and it's maybe not what they expected. But if it resolves in a big way and people go, oh, wow, I have to catch up and watch that, and the Blu-ray sales are good, they may decide to go on. But I would only want that if it's Frost and Lynch again. I don't think I'd want it with just Mark Frost or with a totally different, showrunner creative team. I would only want the Lynch and Frost.
Well, of course, but I would be okay with Lynch and Frost overseeing it and bringing in some of the directors from the original series to do an episode or two. I would be okay with that because let's be honest here, Lynch only directed 6 of the episodes, and other directors made some good work in there too. I mean, it wasn't just Lynch did it all and everyone else just sucked. So,
I'd want him to at least write it all. I think the writing on season 2 was,
but I don't know about that either, because when you see this new series, there's nobody else who could have directed it but Lynch.
Right. Because
he wrote it knowing that he was going to direct it. So if he writes it with someone else in mind to direct it, I don't know. It's only happened one time, I believe, and that was episode 1 of Twin Peaks when Dwayne Dunham directed the episode that Frost and Lynch wrote. I don't think Lynch has ever written anything that someone else has directed. Besides that,
I really don't think with the numbers of viewers that the current season has that it would be any better without Lynch and Frost doing the whole thing. I mean, how could that be a good move?
Well, like I said, I don't think Showtime. I mean, there's always this discussion about whether Showtime's happy with the show or not happy with the show.
Yeah.
I think that at the beginning of the series when it came out, I think they were kind of bummed about the live numbers, but they were ecstatic about the streaming numbers and that type of thing. But if you've noticed with Comic-Con, and again, it's Comic-Con, so you're dealing with comic book movies and that type of thing. At the same time, Twin Peaks was in Hall H, right? That's the biggest auditorium they have there. 5,000
showcase.
It's a 5,000 seater. It was filled, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have that popularity going on. And yet, if you are following any of the Comic-Con coverage on YouTube, not maybe on websites and stuff, but on YouTube, where they're talking about the big panels and what people are drawn to, not one of them are covering the Twin Peaks panel. So what does that tell you? It tells you that, yes, it's really popular and for the people there, but they don't think it's popular overall. So they're not even going to cover it or discuss it or even they're doing 2-minute videos about, Ben Affleck blew his nose in the back room, so they're not going to do a 2-minute like, oh yeah, the Twin Peaks cast came and talked up the new show, blah, blah, blah. No, they don't even discuss it. They don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, Entertainment Weekly is the only one that really that I saw that did anything outside of the main panel.
Right, and Variety, wrote about it and stuff like that. But a lot of it's just like, I say print, but it's online print. In terms of like just YouTube stuff, there's not much going on. I mean, yeah, they uploaded the panel, but I'm saying like Collider and those types of people that discuss everything, and they even do like a TV talk and that sort of thing. Nobody's acknowledging it.
But there, like we said, there was really no news coming out of that panel.
Right.
It's like Walking Dead had a season 8 trailer.
Right.
That kind of thing. So there's stuff to talk about. Old Rick. We finally see old Rick. So there's news. Where Twin Peaks, there's no news.
So do you think it was a mistake for Twin Peaks to go to Comic-Con?
I don't think it was a mistake because, like I said, it keeps it in the front of mind and that kind of thing. And but I don't know. It was a kind of an unexciting panel for all the showcase possibility. Although I wish we would have seen the David Lynch video. That still hasn't surfaced anywhere on YouTube, has it?
I think it would have been incredibly smart if Lynch had sent with them some sort of, since they were going to see the episode anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they should have cut together like a 15-second something, trailer or something, just for the crowd there. All right. It's not going to leak out, but just get them pumped, get some news out there.
Or even like show the first, 3 minutes of the episode or something like that, just as a preview, something. Yeah. And sure. Was it okay for them to go there? Yeah. But is it going to actually do anything? I don't think so. Nobody's talking about it. So it didn't really, I don't know. Did it serve its purpose? I don't know.
Yeah. What did it accomplish? I really wish Lynch and Frost would have been there. That would have at least gotten more coverage, I think, because everybody loves David Lynch.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, having Tim Roth there, what's he going to do? Be signing the Warzone posters? I mean, come on. I mean, Naomi Watts, she's not signing autographs. So, I mean, yeah.
Right. If they would have had Kyle MacLachlan, Mark Frost, David Lynch, and with Damon Lindelof as the moderator, I think that would have been cool.
That would have gotten more press, even if it had been the same material, right? The same content being shared. I think just having Frost, Lynch with Kyle between them, with their arms up at the front of the stage, some people can take pictures and that type of thing. Yeah, I think it would have done better. Just keeping it real here, it's important to discuss all aspects of this show and how they're marketing and how they're going about it. It's not a question of we're going to get into this later, but there's been accusations that this channel has become the negative Twin Peaks channel, which I just completely disagree with. I think we're just incredibly honest about what is going on, and you can't just watch it like this, and because the original fans.
Cameron, you will be a worshipful fanboy, or you will lose all respect. You will lose all your credentials. You must worship at the altar at all times.
We'll discuss this later, but I think personally, I think this channel is overwhelmingly positive.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
And like I've said with you, Mandy, at our watch along, if I wanted to be nitpicky, I really could have been with this whole series, because I'm notorious for being nitpicky. But I've gone on this journey the whole time, and I'm super enthusiastic about so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring up one or two little things and discuss it in detail, so that it's not just a glib, throwaway, condescending, well, this is stupid, and move on. We actually discuss it and talk about our relationship to the show and our feelings about it and that type of thing. You get accused of being a Lynch hater and all this type of thing, which I think is absurd. But we'll get into that a little bit later. The next thing is, did you see, who was it that released this? Vulture. Vulture did an interview with Amy Shields.
Yes.
Which I firmly believe she has to have the greatest Hollywood manager and agent in the history of the business, because this woman has gotten so much press for this show for doing the smallest amount of work so far that we have seen. And that's not a knock against her. I think that she's fine in the role. You would think the press that she was getting. I mean, remember before the show started, there was the rumor that she was going to be in every episode as Tamara Preston or something. Well, that didn't happen.
She's the most famous fly swatter in history.
Yeah, pretty much. So, okay. So, Mandy, we had discussed on the watch along that we liked her in the before sequence when she was, with the fly, and we liked her in the casino, but we didn't understand how those two intertwined, or how it was the same person.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 points to this. One is a viewer named Lisa wrote us and said, I think Candy, who is played by Amy Shields, might have really severe ADD, meaning she's just daydreaming or not paying attention to anything while in the back room, because, well, she stands around as a decoration. So she's spaced out. While at the house, though, she was focused on killing the fly to the point where she ignored everything but the fly. You meet a lot of people with ADD who show these actions to a little bit, but Lynch tends to take human behavior to extremes. So maybe she had no connection, so she was spacing out, and the other thing, she had too much attention on one specific thing.
I think that's nicely summarized, actually.
I know. I thought it was great. But Amy Shields came out and said that she believes that she has this backstory that she says, in my mind, Candy is someone who has been human trafficked her whole life. And says, I love Candy and adore and cherish her so much. Everyone, let's see. It's because she really sees everything through new eyes and has been through something so traumatic in her past, so absolutely hideous, that now that she's been saved by these two brothers, she loves them and sees everything and appreciates it all. Everyone takes air conditioning for granted. It's just everywhere, but not Candy. It's probably the first time she's ever had air conditioning in her life. She loves her bosses, and that's why she was so traumatized, because they were so good to her, and she feels like she hurt them badly. And then she goes on to say that she thinks of herself, she thinks of Candy, that Candy thinks of herself as the Mitchum brothers' pet dog.
I don't know that she sees herself that way. I think they might see her that way a little bit, but I also think they have a weird protective thing about her, because I think Belushi even says at one point, no, she's got nowhere else to go.
Right. Which she says that line was not in the script. And if it wasn't in her script. So when she saw the episode, she did not know that they felt that way about her. And so this backstory that she had created in her mind fit what extra line Belushi was given to say about her. So isn't that weird?
It all makes sense, though. As with a lot of Lynch's stuff, things that seem inexplicable at first, once you really think about them and ponder them and sit with it, it makes sense. But like the person that you were quoting said, you have to let that marinate, and you kind of extrapolate what these absurd things really mean as far as the big picture goes for those characters.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Mandy?
Well, I think it's I like the fact that the brothers, they seem to treat them very well. They're not abusive to them. They always make sure that they look nice, and that to me looks like a sign of care of them, and the girls take care of them, and however that is, if they're just like housemates or whatever, people that follow them along and help them out and stuff. But in other shows, if we were to see girls like this with brothers like that, Candy hitting him with the remote control, I mean, she would have gotten the snot kicked out of her, and she didn't. He was, he's still very nice to them. So maybe they did save them. Maybe this is an actual really nice little story.
Oh yeah. But aren't you shocked how much press this woman has gotten for
100%? Yeah, because I've been waiting for her too, like everybody else. I heard the same thing. Like, she's going to be in every episode. She's an integral part to this thing. And, her being Tammy Preston would have been fine because she did the audio for that, right? For the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then Krista Bell shows up, and I'm like, okay, well, where's Amy Shields? We haven't seen her yet. And, 5 episodes in, there she is for 20 seconds. And then she doesn't show up for another 5 hours. So, yeah, I agree with you. She's got a really good press agent, or whatever it is she's got. She's
yeah.
She hit the jackpot there. So
yeah, hello.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, because these characters, like you said, Big Ed didn't have anything to say on the panel because he hasn't been in the show yet. It's like it's part of their contractual thing where you can only discuss your scenes after they air. You can't say anything before we see it, but after we see it, then it's fair game.
Right. And like I said, I thought it was unfortunate the actors were kind of put in that situation at Comic-Con, even though I know it's great to be adored by 5,000 fans. It's great. But I think it's kind of torturous to be adored and you can't say anything.
Everett McGill said that when he got out of the limo and he arrived, he's like, 500 screaming girls came at him, and he's just like, wow, I've died and gone to heaven. And then he realized they were running towards the Teen Wolf guys.
Yeah.
But the same thing I would say that about actors in general in this Twin Peaks doing mainstream press and interviews. Like why are people doing interviews yet when I understand, like, once it's over, it's out of the public consciousness, but it's so secretive that Lynch wouldn't even release a trailer for this thing.
Yeah.
We got those little like mood pieces, which I love, absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. But I just feel bad that these actors have to do these interviews and they can't say anything. Even Naomi Watts did, who was it? Was it like the Tonight Show or something like that? And Lynch texted her like in the middle of the interview to be like, don't give any spoilers away.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see too if this will be like a theme or a kind of a new way of doing things. If when people are releasing their either new shows or new seasons or something, if they will develop this type of no spoiler, no pictures, no trailers, nothing. If this would be something that kind of catches on, because I love that. I love that we still from second to second have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We've got no clues apart from, we've seen Big Ed, we've seen Sarah in the trailer, and nothing has, they haven't really shown up yet. But I thought it was a really great way to market the show, to keep interest.
But I really think that's comes from David Lynch, who is this unique visionary artist. That's his thing. It's like, because like Cameron was alluding to, Showtime had a whole marketing blitz, and Lynch even saw it and went, yeah, okay, that's good. And then he went home and called him up and said, deep six the whole thing. The only thing I'm going to allow is that billboard with a piece of cherry pie, and they all went, wow, we just worked our asses off on this thing. We had it all set to go. He seemed to like it. And then he called and nixed the whole thing. So I really think that just comes from him. I don't think that's anybody's instinct anywhere, except he has the power to say, that's the way we're doing this show.
But I also think, and Mandy, I think you and I talked about this as well a little bit, that if you watch the end credits, it's very clear that the money is coming for making this show or this movie from other sources than just Showtime. Because if it was just Showtime, they obviously would have a little bit more say as to how they were going to advertise this and recoup their money back. So the fact that it's kind of like a Hannibal. Remember that TV show that Brian Fuller was doing on NBC? They were getting money from Italy. So NBC had no say about that show whatsoever. And that's why it was as good as it was. NBC was just merely distributing it. I think Showtime has money and obviously invested in it, but I think they're kind of able to just be like, oh, okay, well, we'll kind of go with it. Whereas if they were all in on this, I don't know if they would have approved some of the material that Lynch and Frost are doing in this new show.
But do you like it? Like, do you like their approach? Do you think that this is something that people will naturally adopt later, seeing how Twin Peaks has gone spoiler free basically the entire run? Do you think it was actually a good idea that could be the new wave of the future kind of thing?
I would like to say yes, but it's not, because like we've talked about at a Comic-Con, what news is coming out? Nothing. So they've lost that edge with that. It's a difficult thing to talk about. I mean, is it the new way of doing things? I don't think so. I don't, because Twin Peaks is a brand that you say Twin Peaks, you kind of know. I say you know what you're getting because you really don't know what you're getting, but it's a brand. Twin Peaks, it's Agent Cooper. It's obviously now it's Dougie, but you know what I mean. It's its own thing. You can't advertise like a new TV show that no one's ever heard of, that doesn't have an IP that people recognize, and advertise it like this, where you have no ads, nothing. So Lynch was in a unique situation to do this, just like Kubrick in his life was in a unique situation to do what he did. But if you were an up and coming filmmaker, you couldn't spend 3 years making Eyes Wide Shut. Warner Brothers never would have let some 22-year-old make Eyes Wide Shut for 3 years. So, that's kind of the clout you build up. But again, but when it comes down to, the people making their money back, I think Showtime is allowing more risk because they're not completely all in with the money.
And also Lynch's compromise is he's letting them market it, sell T-shirts and coffee mugs and all that stuff, which I don't think he probably loves, but realizes that that's a way for them to recoup some cash too.
Exactly. And believe it or not, in many cases, that kind of marketing makes more than the TV shows or movies make.
Right. It's all about the merch, man. I've already bought, $70 worth of T-shirts and stuff, so I get it.
How many Pop Funkos do you have?
I just bought the Black Lodge, the Comic-Con.
How did
somebody somebody online is selling them. I can send you the link if you want.
Oh my goodness. Are they going for like $500 or what?
$25, dude.
What?
$25.
All right. I'm gonna post this video.
I want it.
I'm gonna post this video after I get that link, so no one else beats me to it. you know, it's an interesting thing. I think it does come down to what Hal was talking about. How does this series resolve? If it resolves in a way where we're just like, oh, mind's blown, this is amazing, this is, you know, then Showtime is like, you know, gonna be so proud. If it goes out, which I don't believe for a second it will, but let's just, for discussion, we're not being negative here, people.
Right.
If it goes out like, you know, episode 10 just kind of petering and it just kind of lollygags to a finish line, yeah, we're not going to see that happen again for another 10, 12 years. I mean, talking about Twin Peaks, I mean, like a cable series taking a risk this huge. But I don't think it's going to happen.
One thing I loved that what Kyle said was that when he read the script, it actually was pretty cohesive and simple. I don't know if he said simple, but he said cohesive. Like on a whole, it actually made sense. So I'm looking forward to this next, or to the last bits of it, to see, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe this will end spectacularly. We can all look back on it and go, wow, this was amazing. I mean, it's amazing so far anyway, but I'm curious to see if we will be able to tell the cohesiveness as well from what he read from the script.
Oh, I think we will. I really have no doubt about it, that there's going to be, you know, I'm not saying that there's going to be another atom bomb explosion like some people theorize on the internet, that Agent Cooper is going to throw an atom bomb into the Black Lodge at Glastonbury Grove at the end of the series. Spoilers. But I do think there's going to be an ending that is resolved at some point. I don't think they're going to end it. I would be shocked if they ended it with like 15 cliffhangers and then we just go out. I don't think that's going to happen. Do I think it's going to be maybe a teeny little bit open-ended? So if they want to continue it later, perhaps. But I mean, Blue Velvet wrapped up. Wild at Heart wrapped up. I mean, David Lynch doesn't leave his movies. I say he does leave his movies open-ended. Lately he has. But at the same time, though, there are endings that let you know the movie is over. It may not be over in your head, but as a work on screen, it's over, so you can go home and get in your car. Go home.
I really think this is going to satisfactorily resolve, and in a way that we're all going to be happy with. And I think 17 and 18 will be mind blowers, much like part 8.
But you know what's so interesting is people have discussed how some people are really praising episode 9, and some people are really praising episode 10, right? There's like two camps. Some people are saying that they prefer the sort of surrealistic kind of pacing of episode 10, and some people are saying no, they really liked when Lynch and Frost get in there, like episode 7 and episode 9, where it's just full throttle. We're going to move that story forward. And some people are saying no, they don't like that because it's just plot upon plot upon plot, and they like the breathing room. I don't think I'm one or the other. I like a mixture of both. I would prefer like the best of Twin Peaks. It is a mixture of both of story and surrealistic set piece and that type of thing. But you can tell in this new series, and this isn't a criticism, people, but you can tell in this new series, there are some episodes that are just full throttle. We're moving that storyline. We're moving the ball down the field so that the next 2 episodes can kind of hang out and chill. Because it's almost like it takes one episode to get us what should be maybe 3 or 4 episodes worth of material, and then the next 3 episodes are just kind of like hanging out with Dougie and that type of thing.
I like that mixture too, and we need all those elements to make it truly Twin Peaks. But man, when episode 3, episode 8, that's the Lynch-gasm that I wait for, man. Those are the moments that I absolutely make it a unique work of art.
just so
Yeah.
you know, how I got a message this morning saying that from now on, every video podcast that you're on, you are obligated to say, got a light.
I need a cigarette, though. Got a light, got a light, got a light.
All right.
I still love that guy. I hope he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to know what parallels, between him and the penny with Lincoln on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't wait till that connects with the main storyline somehow.
Is it going to?
It would have to. Why introduce that young couple? Why introduce the parasite going into her mouth if they didn't factor in?
No,
I mean,
agree.
The woodsman might be one thing where you just go, that's these forces of weirdness, or how do they? But they have to intersect somehow. They have to explain to a certain degree.
I agree with you.
Yeah, me too.
But Mandy and I got in trouble with the last watch along because we had expectations, apparently, which I don't feel like we had high expectations. We just were saying that there seemed to be, and we talked about this too, Hal, as well, there seemed to be a disconnect between the title of that part and the content we received in that part.
Laura is the one, yeah.
Laura is the one. And the reason why I think we even had that was because part 8, which was only, an episode before, had Laura in the orb and they sent it to Earth and that type of thing. So to go from that and then an episode or so later saying Laura is the one, is it expectations? Maybe, but it's not like we just thought we were going to get sort of maybe a continuation exploration of what that was about.
Right.
Not just a throwaway line from the log lady.
Yeah, and I had those expectations too. And then when I did the rewatch and my expectations were already, circumvented or whatever by the episode itself, I liked it, just the same. I didn't change anything. It's just that, and those expectations that we all have on some level, we love that they're circumventing they're defying our expectations. That's part of the fun too. But, it's all fun to talk about all of it. So that's all we're doing here.
Right. And also again, when you and I talked about it, Hal, we were coming off the deaths of George Romero and Martin Landau. And so it was just one more kind of like, we thought we were going to get something like this, but no, Lynch and Frost, they kind of trolled us a little bit here.
Well, and those people have to remember too, when they watch the initial reaction episodes, we do those immediately following the show. So it literally is an initial reaction. In retrospect, you look back and go, oh yeah, maybe I was a little harsh there, or oh, I liked it better than I thought I did after I rewatched it a second time, or whatever. But it's like 30 minutes after it airs, you're just going blah 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 blah, and you don't really know what you're saying half the time.
Right. And again, I mean, we'll get into this later. This is kind of a tease that's being sprinkled throughout, but you would think from the reaction that we've gotten this week that we just came out and puked Garmonbozia all over this series and said it was the worst thing that people has ever seen. And in fact, I think that we have been extremely optimistic about this new series and rooting and being in its corner the whole way.
For the record, I love Twin Peaks. I love David Lynch. I love his worlds. I love his universes. If there's any doubt to that, I'm absolutely a huge fan.
Exactly. Let's get back to the Amy Shields thing real quick, because I think in this Vulture interview, she let out a major spoiler. And maybe a subconscious spoiler, but a spoiler nonetheless, in my opinion. Let's see if it does pay off. The interviewer says, when I talked with Madeline Zima, who played Tracy in episodes 1 and 2, she said that Johanna Ray, who was the casting person on this series and on a lot of Lynch's work, asked very vague, open-ended questions, and she ended up talking about Kurt Vonnegut most of the time. Did you have a similar interview experience? And Amy Shields says, kind of. Mine was probably more playful than that. I just kind of fooled around. But I loved Madeline's part. She was wonderful, mysterious, and sexy. And then the interviewer says, well, I hope you don't meet a demise as gruesome as that. And Amy Shields says, hey, not all of us are killed. So to me, that says she's probably going to live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what that means for the overall story, but obviously, you know, it's not going to be a complete bloodbath. It's not going to be Reservoir Dogs at the end of this series where everyone's dead on the Black Lodge floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that is Little Miss Amy Shields. All right. The next one comes from the site Welcome Back to Twin Peaks. They said that David Lynch and Mark Frost planted another secret message in the last 5 seconds of Twin Peaks Part 7 during their Lynch Frost Productions logo with like this giant circle. Do you know what that's about? Have you seen this?
Yeah. Remember the plane with the flashing windows and the sun reflections?
Right.
So in the Lynch Frost logo at the end, the Lynch Frost, there's code flashes in the letters. If you compare the two logos in that one episode, there's flashes in the letters itself. So it spells out like OSSOOOS or something, you know, so somebody was asking if somebody could decode that, but it is there.
So what do you think all this stuff is, Hal? I mean, do we think that Lynch and Frost are just, you know, engaging with the fans and having fun with us, and that's and it's just a way of keeping the conversation going over the whole summer, or do you think that they're really giving clues away to the show itself? Or both?
I don't know. No one has cracked those codes, either the airplane one or the Lynch Frost logo one yet. So they're either really obscure clues or they're toying with that aspect of fandom. It's like, again, I'll bring up the Beatles. They had a song called Glass Onion, and you know, it said stuff like, here's another clue for you all, the walrus was Paul, because everybody was tearing apart their lyrics looking for clues that Paul is dead or whatever. So they just addressed it, you know, here's another clue for you all, the walrus was Paul. In other words, it's all BS, you know, you're reading into things that aren't there, you know. So maybe they're just doing that to say, if you're all about that, we'll send you on the wild goose chase. Who cares? You know, it's fun.
Right. It's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think in a way it's just them having fun. I don't think that even if you crack the code, it's going to be like that scene in the Christmas Story, need to buy more Ovaltine. I don't think it will be like some amazing tell-all thing of how to get Cooper out of the lodge or something like that. I think it's just a fun little thing.
I agree.
To do with the fans. But, you know, we've had video producers come out and say, you know, this stuff is all digital, and if Lynch wanted to take it out or erase it, he could, like the plane thing, or when Tammy comes up to the door in the last episode, and the door handle, you know, does that weird thing. Mm-hmm. It's like that could be fixed, but the fact that it was probably put in there more than it was a mistake in the digital. You know, it wasn't something that needed to be fixed. I think it was something that Lynch added to it for whatever reason, even if it was just small things. I mean, we know that he's into doing this because of the whole thing with the diner and switching people around and that type of thing. So I don't think there's anything wrong with people who scrutinize this thing frame by frame. There's clues hidden all through this thing, but clues of what? I think honestly, in my opinion, I think it's just having fun with everybody. And I don't think they're having fun where they're like just making people run around in circles so Lynch and Frost can laugh at everybody. I think they're just engaging with people, on whatever level you want to engage with the show on. If you just want to watch it once and go about your life and then come back to it the next week, or binge watch it after it's over, great. If you want to have the experience of diving deep into it and going to Bill Hastings' website, go for it. It's like they're engaging with you on multiple levels.
That was part of the fun with Lost. You could get it in as deep or as surface as you want, and it was entertaining on both levels, you know. And,
exactly.
And I'm sure that there's Easter eggs in Twin Peaks that once all is revealed, we may go back and rediscover, and we'll enjoy it on that level too, you know, but you don't have to get into it that deep to enjoy it for what it is.
And it's like, I love these discussions and I love the instant reactions and the watch alongs, but I mean, all this detailed analyzing that so many people are doing with this show. I mean, it's going to, we're going to find out we're so wrong about so much of this after the whole thing's over, and we look back and go, what the hell were we thinking? And that's part of the fun about it. You know, I've had
because there's no way because the thing's done, they can't course correct. Like Lost would do fan service and stuff. As the fans went, let's do this, then they'd go, okay, yeah, let's go that direction. You could tell they were course correcting as they went, you know, but this they can't do that with. But I do think that nothing is in there arbitrarily. I think everything's in there for a reason.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True. But to play devil's advocate here, and is that just because something is set up and done with purpose does not make it non critiquable.
Sure.
Like that's one of the things that I've learned from the Twin Peaks fandom over this last week is, well, Lynch and Frost mean for this to happen, and then they executed it, so you need to just go along with it. It's like, yes, yeah. that doesn't mean you can't say, like, of course they mean to do that, but that doesn't mean that it's the correct way to do it. And I'm not referring to anything in particular. I'm just saying that there are people out there with different opinions on things. That does not make them bad human beings because they go, yeah, Lynch and Frost meant for Richard Horne to go in there and torment Sylvia Horne, but we didn't like that scene. And it's like, well, why didn't you like that scene? Because I didn't like it the way it made me feel. Okay, great. That's one thing. Or I felt that Lynch did this scene better in another work of art. Okay, great. You have that. Or Richard Horne isn't as, you know, he thinks he's like Frank Booth and Bobby Peru and hell, Mr. Eddie or whatever, but he's nothing. He's just a punk. You know, he's not even, people compare him to Alex in A Clockwork Orange. He's not even as cool as Alex in A Clockwork Orange, if you want to call him cool. He's just a thug. He's a guy who thinks that he's just, you know, he's a snotty little rich kid, even though he drives like the worst cars I've ever seen. For a rich kid, he runs over children, and you know, I don't think that this character is supposed to be, at least at this point, and I don't even know how they can do this with 8 more episodes, elicit any kind of empathy for this character whatsoever. He's just a bad seed, as far as we know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be a reason for us. I'm sure there's a reason they want us to feel that about him.
Oh yeah, and they're not making like any time. I think the one time he's talking with Red, and Red calls him a kid or something like that.
Yeah,
that's like the only moment where there's any sort of recognition of him realizing he's not as cool as he thinks he is. Everything else after that is, and before that, is just like he's just a horrible monster. And that's the intent, right? Frost and Lynch, right. That is their intent.
Right. And this part of the show is about the evil that men do. So why not just show the evil that he's doing because he is insecure. I mean, a lot of things that, anger is born out of fear and insecurity mostly, So, right. If that guy calling him a kid makes him feel less than, then he lashes out, And part of the scariness of Richard Horne is there is such an unpredictable level. It's like he seems to just go off on the spur of the moment. There's no logic behind it at all. He's just a wild card factor.
Right. Well, maybe I'm not illustrating it as best as I can with this, but it's like, for instance, okay, the whole thing with perhaps Deputy Chad getting the wrong letter, that Miriam, right? Because in the credits, she's credited as Miriam Sullivan, and then the letter he got is Miriam Hodges. Also, a letter probably mailed that morning isn't going to get to the sheriff's station that same day, right?
Right.
So people have said, okay, he probably intercepted the wrong letter. But you would only know that is if you pay attention to the end credits, right? Because you haven't gotten to know maybe Janie E and maybe a couple of other little characters, but for the most part, as Mandy was saying in our watch along, you haven't gotten to know really the majority of the characters on any sort of level that you can have a relationship with as a viewer. They kind of just pop in for 5 minutes and then just kind of disappear for a couple episodes and they come back for another 5 minutes. Now, that is something that Lynch and Frost intended. That, you know, they set out to create a movie show that did that. And I think they executed it beautifully because that's what they wanted to do. But that doesn't make people's opinions wrong when they say, I'm not a fan of that approach, even though they did it as well as they could have. Because one of the things that attracts me to things like Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart and Twin Peaks is when David Lynch engages with this kind of material, he creates characters that we fall in love with. I mean, you love Sailor and Lula. You love Jeffrey and Sandy. You love Cooper and Sheriff Truman, all that. So while I myself say, yes, I think they set out to do this series the way they wanted to. I think they executed it beautifully. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I think it's great. I also understand where people are coming from when they say, yes, I'm watching this, but I'm watching this kind of like I would bugs in a petri dish. I'm watching it from, like, you know, the God's point of view. I'm not engaged with the characters in the way that I should be 10 hours into that. So I guess I'm asking you is, Lynch and Frost set out to do something. We all agree that they're executing it as well as they could have, but where do you find that just because they execute something that they set out to do, that people should just automatically, without question, just say it's great and there's nothing else to discuss about it?
No, I don't feel that way. I mean, during the 25 years in between the end of season 2 and now, the main source for Twin Peaks discussion was that magazine wrapped in plastic, and they never kowtowed to everything had to be worshipful and Lynch can do no wrong. They were, you know, always dissecting and critical or theorizing wild, you know, posting wild theories like that the whole Deer Meadow thing was Cooper's dream in Fire Walk with Me. They did a long essay about it that influenced a lot of people's reading of that film. And so, you know, all of it is just opinion and legitimate. It's just fun to discuss. I mean, there's no right or wrong, you know. And I think Lynch would be the first one to agree with that. Your interpretation or your criticism or your liking it or disliking it, there's no right or wrong to that.
Yeah, exactly. He said that a lot, that it's all like his work is personal to him and it's going to be personal to his audience as well, as to, you know, what they take away from it. They're exactly like you said, there's no right or wrong, and there's no actual clear definition of anything either, because he doesn't do that. Right. So
it's designed to have that effect on people.
Yeah, he wants people to dream.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because one of the statements I got over and over and over again over this last week in emails and private messages where it was, hey, you know what? This is what Lynch and Frost set out to do. They're doing it. So it is what it is. And it's just great. And you have to just accept that. It's like, okay, I get that because I enjoy what they're doing. But if someone comes to me and says, I don't enjoy it because of X, Y, and Z, I can see their point of view too. It doesn't make them wrong.
Right, it's not everybody's cup of tea. I remember when they, in one of Lynch's print interviews for this new series, he, you know, they're comparing him to Kubrick and to, you know, Stan Brakhage, the guy that did the, you know, in that atom bomb sequence. There's some Stan Brakhage influence there, and also Terrence Malick's Tree of Life. You know, and Lynch said, "Oh, I can see that, but you know, Tree of Life, not my cup of tea." You know, well, Terrence Malick fans would find that blasphemous, you know, but yet it's not Lynch's cup of tea. Same with Lynch's works.
And Terrence Malick,
it's not their cup of tea.
And Terrence Malick is a good friend of David Lynch.
Yeah.
So and Tree of Life won the Palme d'Or.
Exactly.
So
it's all.
So there's this book here. This is a book that came out a while ago. It's called Horror Writers on Horror Film Cut. And this is one of my favorite books of like horror kind of essays, talks about horror films and that type of thing. And there is an essay in here by Paul M. Salmon, who has done a lot of work for Cinefantastique and Los Angeles Times, and he's done documentaries on Platoon and Dune and RoboCop, and it's chapter 20. And he did this essay, I don't know, it's like 20 pages or so, called The Salacious Gaze, Sex, the Erotic Trilogy, and the Decline of David Lynch. Okay? Now, this essay in here is an essay that I cannot be more against in terms of his readings of the material. I don't see it as well. I mean, that way at all. But it is so well written and so passionate and persuasive in terms of the way he sees things that even though I don't agree with it, I'm enamored with his perspective on things. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to think about when it comes to the works of any artist they like, is that even if someone has a different opinion than you, that doesn't make them right or wrong, especially if they're, intelligent about it or someone you respect. And you go, okay, well, why would they think that way? I'm interested in that.
Right. It's like the plethora of, Lynch as misogynist articles that come out. I disagree, but yet I've seen some really well-written ones. And, if that's a subject that's a certain writer is sensitive about, and it's a well thought out, essay about the way women are portrayed, okay, it's legitimate because that's the way that person read it,
Not on Reddit.
Right, not on Reddit.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would talk about like the Richard Horne stuff and all the women scenes that happened in part 10.
Yeah.
And I think what people had an issue with was not the Miriam scene and not the Sylvia Horne scene, and heck, not even the Stephen and Becky scene. It was the fact that they were almost right on top of each other. Mm-hmm. So that almost the first 25 minutes of part 10 was just men treating women very badly.
It was a brutal episode for sure.
And yet what Mandy and I were talking about is that, people have talked about the brutality of the episode, and yet for some reason the episode overall feels kind of lightweight when you kind of look back at it, because it's just kind of, I don't know, it's the shortest of the episodes. There's, and that's even including the 7-minute music scene at the end. It's I don't know. It's a bizarre feeling that Lynch can go from, some people said, well, Lynch has always been about extremes, right? You have Candy hitting the brother with the remote control, and then you have the Richard Horne Sylvia Horne scene, and it's those type of contrasts. But Lynch has also, and again, I'm not picking on this, I'm just using this to illustrate. Lynch has been someone who, if you look at the scene in Wild at Heart, where Lula and Sailor are dancing and out the outside, and they grab each other, and they're kind of looking at each other, and they're saying "I love you," and the music swells, and it's like the Im Abendroth music, and then it goes from the Power Mad song to the Im Abendroth classical music, and then it goes to the scene where Mariette and John are having dinner at the restaurant. He has a way of doing the contrast, but doing them in a way where it flows. And I think one thing that we've been talking about with this new series is that some of the cuts, going, instead of going from the hotel to the waterfall, it's going waterfall hotel with like an inch in between the foot. It's just, there's so many like shots just being like thrown at you that are just out of whack, that it's creating this kind of just proportionate kind of feeling in the viewer. And I think that, yeah, it's going from these extremes in part 10, but also Lynch isn't putting he's not allowing the transitions in there. We're just getting hard cuts.
I wonder though if you're like, when you say it's more of a lightweight feel, even though all this intensity is happening, I wonder if that has to do with the lack of a score in there telling you what to feel. Like you said, in Wild at Heart, when he's bashing the guy's head and you hear dun, 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 all that powerful music making you feel that on that level. Just the dry horror of this is just two people in a room, and she's being abused, and it's just in your face without any dramatic score to either heighten it or deaden it. It's just flat. It's like it almost makes it more horrific. It's almost like his choice to cut out the humor in Fire Walk with Me in order to let us feel Laura's story. It's almost like, let's just show this dry and unadorned, and it almost makes it more horrifying and bleak if you think about it, because we're not being told how to feel, we're just seeing.
Yeah, I almost wonder what the Frank Booth, Isabella Rossellini scene with Kyle in the closet, what that scene would be like with no Badalamenti score.
Yeah,
just play it straight. What would that feel like? Maybe it would be similar. Yeah, it's an interesting thing that, and again, like for instance, like the Stephen and Becky scene in the trailer. I think again, and this is also like Naomi Watts not getting the scenes until she's about to shoot. If you break down and you look at the dialogue of that scene between Stephen and Becky, there's no indication of what is going on, except the fact that he's angry at her for whatever reason. So, they got this script, and there's nothing in there to tell them what happened prior to this or after this. And Lynch didn't tell them anything. So they have to kind of make up a situation in their heads. But we as viewers just come into the situation, see how horrible it is, and then it's over. We're in and we're out. Whereas when Leo was abusing Shelley in the original series, we understood the context of what was happening in the scene. She hid his blue shirt with the blood on it, or whatever. We understood the context. So I'm not criticizing this. I'm just explaining that I understand where some people are coming from when we're just dropped into these horrible situations for 5 minutes and then we're out and we have no idea what brought us there, why we're gone, why should we care? Will this have anything to do with anything for another 5-6 episodes? Again, it's something that Frost and Lynch set out to do. And I think I feel like they were successful in what they wanted to do. However, I think that the discussion was that the best choice for them to do it that way? Or do you think it would have been better to have gotten to know the characters a little bit more before plunging us into that kind of darkness? For instance, Kyle MacLachlan in Blue Velvet, we don't get any darkness with the Isabella Rossellini, Frank Booth character until about 40 minutes or so into that movie. So Lynch took his time getting us there. I don't know. Am I making any sense what I'm talking about?
I hear what you're saying. I think there is context, though, because we have seen that, because we know Shelley and Leo's backstory. So it kind of informs that her daughter's in a similar situation with an abusive male in her life. And we've also seen that, he's a ne'er-do-well. He needs cash. They borrow money from Shelley. And, the dialogue in that scene was, you don't make enough money, And then her eye, and we know they're on drugs. I mean, he was all red-faced and snotty, so he's probably stoned out of his mind or super high on whatever that sparkle drug is. He's rushing and out of his mind. And she's, the focus on her eye, her horrified eye, I mean, it gives you the context you need without a whole lot of backstory. It's almost like shorthand, and Lynch's dialogue has always had that shorthand aspect to it that, you have to kind of put that puzzle piece together in your mind. But I think there's context in there, and I think these threads are all going to combine, and we're going to see in retrospect that it all makes sense, and there's a reason for that darkness.
And I agree with you, Hal. I'm just saying that I understand when I get messages from people saying the other perspective. I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Mandy, how about you? Do you understand where they're coming from?
Absolutely, because I'm kind of one of them sometimes. I really do. Like, I mean, Becky and Steven, for example, so far haven't they haven't really served a purpose. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay, it's cool. We know that Shelley has a daughter, but we don't know who her father is. And the 2 times that we've seen them is they've been very extreme situations, like her being abused or them doing drugs. If they were going to have a sub storyline of this big, drug cartel that's, running through the high schools again and doing all that, could they have taken their 250 cast member list and just put more scenes of these people all the way throughout so that it's not so shocking when we actually see them? And that's what I was saying before, was that it is disjointed and that there's no context for Becky and Steven at this point. We've seen them twice now. It's still not doing anything because they're thrown in and then they're gone. And that's it. The acting's great. The dialogue, the scenes themselves are great. But how does this fit into our show, and why hasn't there been more to it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I think there's a lot yet to be seen, though, and it will make sense in context and once we see the whole thing. And I don't think it's as gratuitous as some people are perceiving it to be. I think there's going to be a reason for it in the end. If not, it'll be sad. But I really think that that when they finished that script before they started filming, Lynch always talks about everything has to feel correct. And I really think I trust in him in that way too, where I think it's going to pay off in a big way.
And I agree with you. And I want to make this clear. I agree with them about what we're talking about. But when does that excuse stop?
Episode 18.
So you're saying all the way episode 17, after it's over, people are still going to be online saying, I trust in Lynch. We're going to wrap everything up in the next hour. It's going to be fantastic. And everything's going to come together in that last hour.
Well, I think I trust that it will, but yet to go back to Lost, a lot of people felt that 6-year ride was spoiled by the final episode. I wasn't a huge fan of the way Lost wrapped up, but yet it didn't spoil the ride for me. And I kind of trust Lynch and Frost more than I do Lost, because they were course correcting as they went, and even though they had an ending in mind through the whole thing, I think that overall it kind of it wasn't as cohesive as a whole, where this was planned from beginning to end before shooting and it's shot all as one thing. I'm trusting in the ending, but we'll see. It's yet to be seen.
Oh, and I agree with you. I do like the Steve and Becky stuff. I totally understand what you're saying, Hal, about, I feel like we have enough context, and that's why I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. But I also understand where people are coming from, because it might not be enough context for some people. It's
a demanding show, and it's not you can't just have it. It's not wallpaper viewing. You can't just have the TV on and go get a snack and kind of come back in and what's going on. You really have to pay. Like Lynch likes you to do, turn the lights down, immerse in it. You have to feel it. If you're not that engaged in it, it's going to seem more gratuitous and surface. If you're really engaged and into those feelings, I think you're going to get a lot more understanding, even though they don't spell it out for you.
And this, I will say, this is a much more challenging version of Twin Peaks than either the first 2 seasons or Fire Walk with Me.
Much more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even Fire Walk with Me, you could let it just kind of flow and unravel. This is, if you're not fully engaged, you're never gonna know that like this last name of this character is wrong, because it doesn't correspond with the end credits. So let me ask you this before we move on. Do you think, again, we won't know until the whole thing's over, but at this point, do you feel like there's, because this was a complaint about the first 2 seasons when it was on originally. Do you feel like there's too many characters and too much going on at this point?
Like there's no way at this point they'll be able to satisfactorily wrap it up because so much is going on and there's not enough time left?
No, I think they have enough time. But I'm just saying, like, do you feel like there's been just way too many characters to the point that we don't even know the last names or first names of some of these people, and we've seen them for like 4 episodes.
There's some of that. I feel some of that, and you know, like because I'm a first generation fan, there's a soft spot in my heart for the original cast, and I'd like to see more of them. I wish there was more of them, but you know, there's a lot more show to go, and I still trust that we'll all be satisfied in the end. But yeah, I can see that's a valid argument that there's a little bit too much new in there to feel like Twin Peaks sometimes. But you know. I'm cool with it because I love the fact that they're giving us more in this world and that they've expanded the world.
I agree. I think that what they've done is they've expanded the universe of Twin Peaks into even a bigger. You know, we've always felt Twin Peaks was like this, and we understood that, and then they've just been making it bigger and bigger and bigger, from the Secret History of Twin Peaks all the way into. You know, the idea of even going as far as New York and South Dakota. I mean, what the heck is Laura Palmer showing up to Gordon Cole as an apparition outside his hotel door in South Dakota? You know, I mean, that's a location that we've never even thought of in terms of the Twin Peaks universe. But Mandy, I want to give you a chance to discuss it. Do you think there's too many characters in this new series so far for you?
I mean, I really like the way Hal put it, that, you know, yeah, I do a little bit. It doesn't mean I don't love what we're seeing, but I do like Hal put it perfectly, that, you know, I have a soft spot too for the original people, because that was the world that we knew, the world branded as Twin Peaks. That's what we knew. We knew these people. James has been on screen for 30 seconds. Why is that? You know, and
some people want James on camera for 30 seconds. There's a
fair enough. Like I
love him. I love James Marshall. I just want to say
James is cool.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm continually surprised at where the show is going. I love where it's going. Are there some things that I'm not totally on board with? Yes. That's okay, and I'm still, you know, riding this boat out until it's done. And
so you're not one of these people that's canceling their Showtime subscription right now?
Absolutely, forget it. You cannot. No, I won't say that. No, absolutely not. I've been in this journey for far too long, for like 23 years or something. I'm not stopping now, just because there are a couple of things that I get slightly irritated by. Absolutely not.
And you never know, when the whole show's over, you might look back at those irritations and be like, well, they seemed relevant at the time, but now that it's over, it's, you know, it was kind of, you know, it was just me being irritated because we were going through this week by week, you know.
Exactly. We're not able to binge this. We can't go through the entire thing and have an answer in a quick, like a fast amount of time. So you know, we're back to TV in the 90s where we have to wait every week, and it's frustrating. And maybe that's Netflix's fault. I don't know, but maybe they're why I'm irritated by some of the stuff.
But you don't hear this with Game of Thrones fans, where they have to wait week by week.
I like the week by week wait. I like the 2-week wait after episode 8. It gave us such a chance to kind of feel that and mull it around in your brain, you know. So I like the wait.
Yeah, they've given us 2-week breaks. After episode 4, there was a 2-week break, and then after episode 8, 2-week break. Do we have any other?
Speaking of canceling your Showtime subscription, just to go off on a tangent, do you think after Part 18 airs, is it appropriate to immediately cancel your subscription? Would that help a season 4 if they saw the subscriptions drop right after the show airs?
You're not going to see subscriptions drop until 3 weeks after. Because 3 weeks after the return goes off Showtime streaming.
Okay.
So once it gets pulled, then you'll see the subscriptions. I don't.
Are you planning to cancel your subscription after the show finishes?
Yes.
Me too.
That's why I thought when they went to 18 episodes, I thought that we were going to get 9 for season 3
and
9 for season 4, because then Showtime would guarantee at least a 2-year subscriptions out of people.
I haven't seen anything else on Showtime that would keep me paying the monthly fee. that would keep me hanging in there. So hopefully that would, because HBO kind of sets that precedent, like with series like The Wire and Damon Lindelof's The Leftovers, that really didn't have the ratings, but they're prestige shows, that make you come back and you want the HBO archives. It keeps you hanging in there subscription wise. So to me, maybe Twin Peaks, with all its, because it's kind of a critical darling, you must admit, and it does have its hardcore coterie of fans like us three, and maybe dropping those subscriptions would cause them to want to do more. Who knows?
Well, I think I've talked about this before, but I think them getting Lynch onto Showtime I compared it to back in 1983 when Universal Pictures picked up Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Eric Idle, asked the president of Universal years later, like, "Oh, that was fantastic, you did that." And the president of Universal at the time said to him, "Well, it was a strategic move because I knew that if I had signed the Pythons to make their next movie with us and give them full reign, that I could then sign anybody else I wanted to in the world of comedy because we were the studio that was giving Monty Python the chance to do what they wanted." So if
That's
Showtime
right.
is seen as the network that allowed David Lynch and Mark Frost to do their Twin Peaks, then maybe they'll get more prestige shows like HBO where people would come to them first as opposed to HBO first.
That's right, because they're putting art over commerce.
Right. And I think they're willing, even though they are making money and they are getting a lot of press. They got a lot of press. People hate when I bring this up, but I have to, just because we're talking about it. Now that Game of Thrones is back, you can see that the press has kind of dipped a little bit for Twin Peaks because now there's another big show to write about. Whereas before it was just Twin Peaks that was getting all the stuff. So it is a critical darling, but I think we're kind of doing the season 1 and season 2 thing again with Twin Peaks, where I think for the first 8, 5, 6 episodes, it was getting a lot of talk and a lot of articles being written about it. But now that we're in the second half, I think you're starting to see that drop. I think you're starting to see now we're into mid-season 2 fandom where only the hardcores are left. There's no casual viewers anymore. They've all gone away, and that's fine. They'll catch up later. But right now, it's just the hardcore people watching.
And then we've got a time shift coming up too. Hope that doesn't throw people off. They tune in at 9. Wait, it's at 8 o'clock now in August.
Well, then it'll be available on their streaming. They'll be happy.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think Showtime overall is I think overall they're going to be happy they made this deal. Okay, I really do. But I think right now they are a little. They may be smiling, but but they're smiling they're men smiling in a smiling bag, basically.
They were hoping to have a bigger smile on their faces.
Yeah, pretty much.
And commerce always wins out over art in the end, usually.
Again, but they're gonna make a boatload on all the marketing stuff. Their Bang Bang Bar T-shirts and all that stuff.
Exactly. The show may actually be a loss leader for the merchandise and other things, who knows?
And let's be honest here. When they finally announce a Blu-ray set, it's going to, do you know how much money they're going to make on that? And especially if they do like a complete mystery box set that includes the movie and the season 3 and all that stuff. Oh my, huge.
And a collector's edition with, logs and cherry pie pieces.
Oh yeah, totally. Real quick before moving on, Hal, I saw that you are interested in getting that Criterion Twin Peaks Fire Walk with me.
Yeah.
That Mandy and I talked about.
Yeah.
Some people are online are saying, we shouldn't get it because it's just a reproduction of the disc that's in the entire mystery. I think it is going to be a little bit different. There's going to be new stuff added to it. But I was telling people you should still get it. If anything, you won't have any audio sync issues with the missing pieces.
And I was one that had those audio sync issues. So I was really frustrated that CBS didn't acknowledge or, give a replacement disc like they did with Eraserhead with Criterion, So I'm going to buy it. But I agree with your plan. I'm probably going to wait for the 50% off sale.
Right, and then it's awesome. Then you can pick up that and Barry
Yeah.
Lyndon and
Yeah. Because there's no rush to get it. It's not like I need to see the movie again now. You know, it's like I can wait.
And to everyone saying, "Oh, it's gonna be glorious because it's gonna be in 4K." It's not in 4K. It was a 4K restoration, but it's gonna be 2K presentation. So, just so you know, everybody, it's not a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of it. At least Criterion hasn't done that yet. Okay, moving on real quick. Stephanie contacted me, and this is something that I've thought about myself, but she just wanted the viewers to know, because I agree with this, that she believes that the other guy that's with the evil doppelganger outside the box, the glass box, is probably Robert Heinlein, who, of course, was the partner of Bill Hastings on the website. Because his picture.
Not Robert Heinlein. That's the science fiction author. You're talking about the other guy.
That's the guy who wrote Starship Troopers.
Right.
But isn't his name? What's his name?
No, it's the other guy. Look in the left column of the website.
Then
it mentions his name. Heinrich somebody, wasn't it?
Oh, it's Heinrich Weigel. Stephanie,
Right.
Stephanie, you sent me Robert Heinlein. I got confused. I'm reporting that the evil bad guy is the one who wrote about the military industrial complex in Starship Troopers. Great, but yeah, I obviously don't know it for a fact, but it looks like it would be the same person. And that would make sense, and it would tie things together with Hastings' website and explain why it's important to go to Hastings' website, not just as kind of a curiosity, but maybe something that would tie in more. Mm-hmm. Also, people have told me that every time you go to the website, the number count goes down 1. Never goes up, only down. So, and Hal, I know you talked about this earlier to me, but I'm getting messages while we're recording right now, as Mandy's cat continues to meow, that Kyle MacLachlan at Comic-Con, someone asked him a question, and he said that people were playing music at the Bang Bang Bar.
Yeah.
No,
he actually said the Bang Bang Club.
Oh, Bang Bang Club. All right, well, I just want to let people know that Kyle MacLachlan is at Comic-Con. He's tired. He doesn't quite know what he's saying sometimes. And I would even argue that sometimes actors in a property know less about the property than the creators and the fans themselves.
Well, maybe he's still channeling Dougie, and he heard somebody say it, and he's just like, bang, bang, bar.
Yes. We don't know where or when, but there are owls at the Bang Bang Bar.
Doesn't quite have that same ring.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. All right, so Mandy, you're now on the spot. This is something that you brought to my attention on Reddit. Would you care to explain to people what it is and why we should be interested in this?
Okay, I've never read Reddit before, ever. I don't even know how I came across this article. But someone had posted a theory about a 10-day gap, being that real Cooper, or when Cooper leaves the purple room, it's actually 10 days after Bad Cooper is vomiting the Garmonbozia. I think that's what it is.
Now, why?
There's some sort
why
of...
would that be? Like, what explains that? Where does someone come up with 10 days? I think it had to do with the box, right? When he's in the box and it goes dun dun
yes.
dun dun dun. They counted it and it's 10 as he's going back.
Yes. Yeah, which I looked over it again today, and I don't think it actually does, but there's a lot of clicking and stuff in there, and my mind is blanking right now, obviously, while I'm doing this live, but if you can find it, it's an interesting theory. He's changed it a few times. He's edited it. There's a revised version of this theory from today as well, I think. So I think I don't know if he's fully on board with his own theory or he's seeing things changing over time, but basically that he thinks that the reason why Dougie, one of the things he says is the reason why Dougie is so slow is that the body and the consciousness of Cooper are 10 days apart. they're not syncing up properly. And then eventually when they get to this October 1st or the October 2nd, that's when the two will sync up. The body and the consciousness will sync up, and Cooper will be restored.
How? I don't understand. If he's 10 days behind, then what does it matter if he gets to October 1st or October 2nd?
Because that's where things are going to align, and the time discrepancy is going to connect finally through whatever convergence of the.
But wouldn't he always be 10 days behind?
You know, I think part of that too is with the Matthew Lillard thing. What date did he write? Did he write 9/20 or did he write 9/29? And then Matthew Lillard on the Comic-Con panel said he thinks he wrote 9/20, but he can't remember because it was a year ago. But I looked really closely at that, and I see where he wrote a circle and there's a line after it. I think he wrote 9/29. So.
Was it even Matthew Lillard writing that number?
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, but
it could be an insert.
Yeah, it could be hand double, yeah. But right. I still see the 9 myself, but you know, I can see where people look. It did look like 9/20 until you really freeze frame it and look, and there's a line down. It's just sloppy writing, and he was handcuffed. Let's face it. So, but I think that's part of that 10-day lag theory too. But I don't really know. So I think that overcomplicates things, though. It's hard for me to get into that theory.
I don't know. I just don't understand. Yeah, if you're 10 days behind, how do you catch up to the 10 days? I don't understand that.
I think it was I don't know if it has to do with Jack Rabbit's palace of the people meeting up. I'm not sure. I go read it. It's an interesting read anyway, even if you kind of want something to do for a few minutes to look at it. And I'm not articulating it properly at all, but I love that people put so much thought into these things, and every little thing could potentially has a meaning. And I mean, this thing it's long, like it's very in depth. The comments too are really great in this thread. So it's worth a read. And again, do any of us really know anything? No, of course not. But it's fun to theorize, and well, I guess we'll just see what happens. But yeah.
And that's the beauty of non-binge watching, because you have those gaps and people can theorize and write essays in between. And I love that aspect of watching a show unfold week to week. You know, that was another pleasure of Lost. I think if you binge watch Lost without all those in-betweens and listening to the podcasts and listen to everybody speculate in between the episodes, you're missing that experience. It's a different experience when you binge watch.
Completely.
What did you think when you read it, or did you read it?
I haven't read that yet, but I've heard that 10-day lag theory based on the Matthew Lillard thing, and so I get where people are coming from with that, but I'm not buying into it myself. But I would like to check it out.
Okay.
I think there's like interesting theories out there, but remember we all thought for a long time that Rancho Rosa existed in a different time dimension too. So
right.
Yeah.
And the moment the Great Northern Key showed up, I know one of the arguments for that is that the key is mailed one day and Ben Horn gets it the next day. And there's no 24-hour turnaround on mail from Las Vegas to Snoqualmie, Washington. So, yeah, I mean, I can see that. I just, with 8 episodes left, that's a lot to kind of explain.
Yeah.
Unless especially at the pace that they're going. I mean, let's be honest here. We really enjoyed episode 10, but episode 10 could have been done in 20 minutes if they had a normal pace. So, they are definitely, Lynch is definitely, taking the slow ride through this whole thing.
Do you think that pace will continue? Do you think it will accelerate going forward?
No, I don't think it will continue. That's what I'm saying is like there's like an episode or two where we have that pace, and then the next episode is just full throttle plot all the way through. With like 7 and 9 was just full throttle plot, and I remember even episode 4. My wife at the end of episode 4 was like, "Oh, I really like this episode," because it was the most like plot driven thing that we had seen up until. With like Albert and Cole having that conversation on the tarmac and things like that. Felt very Twin Peaks. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm thrilled that people are coming up with these great theories. I really hope that some of these things do come true. But I going back to Lost, I remember when Damon Lindelof would say, you know, we're on Lostpedia, we're reading all these great theories. Some of these people have better ideas for the show than we do.
Yep.
Remember, even the whole thing going so far as to say that that Aaron was going to be Jacob, as you know, that Aaron going back in time, the baby was going to be Jacob later in life.
Yeah, or like the stuff like the four-toed statue. You know, everybody was like, and finally these theories, it became, you know, that's Tarawet, which was a Egyptian mother goddess and stuff, and then that became the answer kind of thing. So they were almost responding to some of those fan things. I doubt if they had that planned from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So interesting. I mean, you know, don't want to knock the person because I think it's a well thought out idea.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what's really going to happen. I don't know. Again, we don't know how much is Lynch and Frost just playing with everybody and I don't mean playing with like, you know, just, you know, playing with us like we're little toys of them, but, you know, just having fun with the idea of looking for clues and searching for things and what is actually happening.
Lynch has gone on record saying he likes the in between episode fan speculation. He enjoys that we're doing that,
even though he's not paying attention to any of it.
He doesn't pay attention to it, but he likes that it's happening.
Well, don't you think any creator would love people to talk about their work for a solid week?
Sure, but I mean, to say specifically that he likes it, he could have been indifferent to it, you know. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's that kind of fandom that has allowed him to continue to do what he does, even 10 years after Inland Empire, when his fandom pretty much turned on him at that period of time. And then remember when Lynch came out after Inland Empire and said, this is, you know, I love digital. That's the quickest I've ever worked. I can just, you know,
I'll never do film again.
Right. And then 10 years later, there's been nothing except this new Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
But
I think he acknowledges that no one understood Inland Empire, and therefore it was on that level ultimately a failed experiment because no one got it, you know.
Well, that was one thing that he has said. His one regret is that Inland Empire is the one film he's made that did not make back its money. And considering how cheap it was made, that's very sad.
Sure, I don't think anybody would like to lose money for people that invested in him, you know.
Well, and also, I mean, I understand when people say, "Why is Fire Walk with Me coming out on Criterion? Why don't we get Lost Highway? Where's Inland Empire? Where's The Straight Story? Where's The Elephant Man? You know, we need you know, Blu-rays of these movies more than we in the U.S. and Canada than another edition of Fire Walk with Me." So.
Because Twin Peaks is new and now, so I'm sure they'll get around to it. Eventually you'll see The Straight Story.
Oh, I guarantee. Listen, they have they have 4 films of Lynch's. Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, The Art Life is coming out this fall, and Fire Walk with Me. They're going to treat Lynch like they do Wes Anderson. They're going to end up releasing most of his films.
Right. You just bought a new Charlie Chaplin Criterion release, so sometimes it takes a few years for those to get released.
Exactly. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap this up with a quick discussion about some of the lovely comments that we received over this last week. The reason why I even bring this up is because there has been an abundant amount of messages, comments left for us 3 about episode 10. Laura is the one. And I have to just say that I'm so glad we liked this episode overall, because if we really disliked it, I can't believe the messages that we would have gotten instead. We've had so many people just come after us personally and aggressively just because we said, I don't know if I like this, or I don't know. I mean, just small little things, teeny tiny little things. But overall, really praising the episode. All of a sudden, this channel has, like I said, been perceived by a lot of people as being a negative, sore spot on Lynch, and so people are saying they're going to abandon watching these videos and move on to other channels. Fine if you want to, but I got to tell you that I've gone on to a lot of these YouTube podcasts and videos where people have said the exact same thing we were saying, or they said things about other aspects of the show that they didn't like, sometimes even harsher than what we were saying. And yet some of the people who wrote really harsh, mean stuff to us were praising their videos. So I'm almost thinking, well, which is it? Yeah. Are you disagreeing with us because you disagree with us? Or are you disagreeing just because of who we are? I had one message tell me that, well, Cameron, you've been a long time fan, so you should know better. You should just trust in Lynch, and everything's great. Everything's a masterpiece. There's nothing wrong with this thing, and just accept it. And you can't judge it until the whole thing's over. Now, I've said many times, yes, you cannot judge this thing overall until you've seen the whole thing. But I think you can discuss each part, since that's what we're doing with these videos. And as we've said before, and Mandy, I brought this up to you last time. Well, the other alternative is that we don't release any videos about the subject matter until the whole thing's over. And your response to me was, well, where's the fun in that? Part of the fun is discussing this stuff. And that's the pros, whatever cons, warts and all, marketing, fandom, whatever. We're discussing everything on the channel. Most YouTube podcasts talking about this discuss the episodes, and that's why people tune in, and that's great. This has never been that kind of podcast. This podcast existed well before this new series came out, and so we would just talk everything Twin Peaks, and so I wasn't going to stop that.
I think the difference in this show from some of the other podcasts that I watch is, like, most of those, it's almost like, if you're not quite or if you're not sure what you've watched, they go on and go, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. They're making connections for you. Maybe it makes it a little bit clearer for you or something like that. This podcast assumes you get it, and now we can kind of talk about it. And it feels like, just friends hanging out in a room talking about something we really dig. We all love it, or we wouldn't be sitting here, on a Saturday afternoon, talking about it and hanging out and laughing and discussing. And, that's part of the fun of this show for me. That's why I hang out with you guys. So.
Oh no, it's a blast. And and that was the whole reason I even started doing YouTube videos to begin with was, hey, remember all those times you had great conversations with your friends? Imagine if you could have recorded those and let the world join in on those conversations.
Exactly.
What I was kind of taken aback by, and again, this is the internet, so I shouldn't be, but was that I was getting lots of messages that basically came to the consensus of, we really like your podcast, we really love your stuff, but because you're getting negative, we now want to leave. And it's like, well, right. one, we're not negative, and two, so you only are here because you like what we're saying about the thing you love. But the moment we say anything that you feel like negates your fandom, which has a problem with you more than us, if you feel that, if we can shake your fandom that much, I don't know. I think that you're giving us a little too much credit for being able to upset you. You should be able to be upset that easily. And
it's fine if somebody doesn't like what we say. That's fine too. I mean, if there's something we said in any episode that pisses somebody off, hey, feel free to slam us for it and stuff. But that's fine. It's all just a conversation.
Right. Right. I just found it really interesting that. We just the other YouTube channels were saying similar things, sometimes even worse than what we were saying, and they weren't getting attacked on the level that our podcast was getting.
Well, in some ways that's good, Cameron, because it means that that maybe we're engaging with people as a group of friends, and so you kind of go, I disagree with what that guy said. He made me mad today because I kind of like him, and now he said something that I disagree with. Whereas somebody that does a more generic approach to the podcast, you go, oh, well, that's his opinion. It doesn't matter. But I think, it seems like a group of friends here. And so maybe it hurts more when you say something that, somebody disagrees with. Yeah.
I also think that I also can tend to be a little bit more in your face than some other people, but that's who I've always respected when it comes to radio and podcasting is have an opinion,
Yeah.
And keep an open mind, but stick to your opinion. And if if you change it, great. But I'm not going to. I'm here to say what I think and feel. I'm not here to make you think and feel happy.
Right.
Because again, if all people want, and this is something we talked about, Mandy, as well, if all people want is to come on this program so that we can all say it was great, it was a masterpiece, that's it, then what's the point of tuning in?
Yeah, who was the Saturday Night Live weekend update? He always ended with, and that's my opinion. I could be wrong. It's like, that's all it is.
Exactly. But I just, again, it wasn't so much like, oh, you hurt my feelings or anything like that. It was just, I couldn't believe just the amount of just venom being thrown all week long, and not by everybody. Obviously, there was a lot of great people, but there, it's not every day that one of your videos gets 34 thumbs down because people are just couldn't handle what you are discussing or daring to have a criticism about anything. And again, what did the major criticism come down to? It had to come down to the fact that we didn't feel like the title that was given matched the content of what we received. Now, again, that had nothing to do with the episode itself. That had to do with, yes, our expectations, but it was expectations that the show was giving to us. It wasn't just personal expectations. It was Laura's in an orb. She got sent to Earth, apparently, as far as we were aware of. And an episode later is called Laura is the One. We're kind of thinking we're going to get a little bit more about that. And when we didn't get that, it wasn't like, oh, this show's terrible, this show's awful. It was about, okay, well, I was a little underwhelmed in that department because we thought that we were going to get that, but the rest of it was fine. And again, on rewatches, it's fine. Even Mandy, you and I even said after the rewatch, oh, this plays a lot better than
absolutely. And it was a good episode. And even just, while we're talking about this now, it's, if they had named episode 8, Laura is the One, we had that one moment. We had that amazing moment where all these crazy things are happening and we're in the Grey Lodge or wherever, and this beautiful gold appears, and then there's this orb, and then there's Laura's face. That's what you do with the title like Laura is the One. You give us something that punches us in the face. Didn't get that in episode 10. It doesn't mean the whole show is crap and I don't like it. I love everything about this. Sorry, I don't love everything about this show. I love 99% of this show. There are a couple of things that irk me, but if you're walking into the show thinking everything is perfect, I won't believe you, because it's just not. But it is fantastic and I love it. And yeah, this was a total superficial thing just based on a title. That's it.
And that's where people are really attacking, because they're saying that I watched this episode without knowing what the title is, and so I was fine. Well, that's
good for you.
Yeah, that's the only thing. And again, it didn't cloud our judgment of the episode itself. It was we were discussing, because that's what we do on a video podcast. We were discussing the disconnect between a title and that. And again, these are not titles that a German TV station threw on. All right. These titles were approved by Lynch and Frost. So again, it was just like, okay, well, again, if they had called episode 8 instead of God of Light, if they had called it Laura is the One, it absolutely would have made sense. But I just don't think that a throwaway line from, the log lady, again, there were so many other lines they could have used in part 10 that could have been used as the title. Again, a lot of people love to say, oh, we're nitpicking. We are not critiquing the show, what we got in the show. We're just discussing the fact that it just didn't match up.
Yeah, that title might have been not the correct choice, but whatever. Who cares? That's just our opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, for instance, like, okay, there's Rise of the Planet of the Apes and there's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes that come out, and everyone says, yeah, they're great movies, but those titles should have been flipped.
Right.
You know, so it's like that, right? I mean, yes, titles are arbitrary, but at the same time, when we're watching this week by week, and that's what we're going off of. Again, what's episode 13 again? Something Charlie.
Episode 13 is, let me get this for you
What's
here.
that about Charlie
It's
or
called-
something?
It's called What Story Is That, Charlie?
Okay, see, that tells me nothing. And
Yeah.
and I'm going to go into that episode going, I know nothing about this thing.
Yeah,
And
who the hell's Charlie?
exactly. And so you're going in there with no expectations. A lot of people have been just critiquing us over and over again about like, you should just go into this with no expectations, and I am. But if you gave me an episode called Cooper's Back, and
and Cooper's not in it, you'd go, wait a minute, why'd they call it that?
Yeah.
Right, because I think Lynch and Frost are having some fun with the audience as well. But I just want to go through some of these comments. We got a comment here that said, "This is the first watch along I couldn't watch along with. It was too narrow-minded," which is strange because your podcast usually isn't. I was like, I wrote back funny because we were pretty even-handed and overall praised the show. But I don't think a lot of people, you know, they want to come into these podcasts, get what they want to get, and leave. They don't want to go through the whole thing, which is kind of a bummer, because you kind of start realizing who are the people who really watch the podcast all the way through and who aren't, just by the people. I'm going to go through some of the little comments praising and otherwise, but Tizamori something to do with our podcast, but just says that she wants us to know that the Dumbland / bear thingy that was on Johnny Horn's table had real teeth glued to it. I don't know how she would know that, but that's creepy. If that's true.
I love Dumbland too, so that was a fun callback for me because it does look like that character in Dumbland. Right.
Marvin here writes, I thought this was an interesting topic, conversation. He says, I wasn't crazy about Robert Englund's contributions to the show. I think Ingalls approached Twin Peaks like a cartoon, fitting that he wanted to turn it into a graphic novel later. The whole bizarre Planet of Cream Corn was seriously a pitch he gave that was just weird enough that Lynch may have been attempted to try it. And that he thinks basically, I think Frost backing out of Fire Walk with Him is kind of a revelation that he may have been taking things a bit too far, and Lynch wanted to experiment more with Fire Walk with Me. I agree, but I also think that Fire Walk with Me, as people say, oh, it's not the TV show, it's this and that, it's bigger and it's more R-rated. It's also very, it's not as wild as it could have been. Let's be honest here. It's very toned down. I think Fire Walk with Me is. If he really wanted to have Laura Palmer just going crazy, we would have been at One Eye Jacks and had a full Eyes Wide Shut kind of thing going on.
Yeah, orgy sequence.
Yeah, don't say that, Hal. People will flag the video. They'll be like, "Oh my God, they said something bad."
I meant Georgie Porgy.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Okay, this comes from Dari. I mean, I think I understand how you feel, Cameron. There's no excuses for those who insult and rail against someone just because you have a different opinion. Thank you. I got more than just nasty comments. I got some like, you're not a real Lynch fan. You're terrible. You should never talk about anything Twin Peaks again. All because we just had some issues with the title.
I think there's a lot more people that dig this podcast that are naysaying it. So I wouldn't put so much stock in that. No.
I agree. But what I'm saying is I want to give these people a chance, because some of these people I know aren't trolls. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know their voices are heard as well. And I just wanted to just kind of like
you should have a thought of the day with haters as guests. That'd be a fun one.
I've done stuff like that before, where like people have like criticized something, and I've invited them on. It's like, hey, if you want to come on, exactly. Let's talk.
Yeah, man.
Like Carolina here writes, I do see that some people react too aggressively and can become really unpleasant. And I understand that must be terrible for the people who do this show with all the dedication they put into this. And we really love the podcast. But currently, there's too much negativity going on around here. I was always eager to watch these videos, but lately they make me feel frustrated that everyone keeps dwelling on these things. I feel so disappointed when Cameron says that some of us only like the podcast if he says we want to hear. I think that's very unfair. Let's just watch, enjoy, and discuss the show. I agree, Hal. Let's just discuss the show and enjoy Twin Peaks. But the problem is that when you get over 500 messages of hate over the course of 5 days, I feel like I have to address it.
It's. I'm sure it's hurtful. You are the host of the show, and you're going to get the backlash when there's something people disagree with. But I think way more people are enjoying themselves than, and it's sad that, come on, we're going to say things that people are going to disagree with, and not everybody's going to see the show the same way. It's not that kind of a show. So just, relax. We all love the show. We're all fans of the show. Nobody's hating the show.
We have been accused of being elitist on this channel.
In what way?
I would like to say we are. and I mean this by
we're hardcore fans. I mean, that way.
What I'm saying is, I feel like we are elitist in terms of this. I think that we are welcoming to anyone who considers themselves, a hardcore fan of David Lynch and Twin Peaks and want to really discuss this show on not just a superficial plot level. We want to discuss all aspects of it. If you are that kind of person, we welcome you in. If you're someone who just wants to, I don't know,
cherry pie and coffee.
Yeah, then yes, we are elitist and proud of it. Let's see. This person writes, this watch along, Mandy, you'll be happy to know this. This watch along is way worse than James and Evelyn.
Wow.
I told him to bite his tongue because, I like the James and Evelyn storyline. So,
I think people are just trying to be funny now that they've decided. They probably saw that they got your goat a little bit, and now they're going to ratchet it up. That's the nature of the internet, man.
Yeah, but I didn't respond to barely any of these comments. But I just thought it was interesting that, again, there's been really nice things about it.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, like Victor writes in about people, saying that Lynch and Frost set out to do something, they accomplished it, so therefore it's a masterpiece. And Victor responds back with, by this standard, you could call the most poorly written show an absolute masterpiece, as long as it's vague and open-ended enough. Reading and hearing fan theories is often more fascinating than watching the actual shows or movies. But that doesn't mean that we should all reward incompetence or laziness if we feel like it's appropriate. P Simple says, love the watch alongs. Mandy is fantastic. So
yay, Mandy! Yay!
There's a go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I like those comments.
Yeah, people really, people are really big fan of this Laura Palmer showing up outside Gordon Cole's door. I can honestly take it or leave it at this point. When something comes up and it puts it more into context, I'll probably be more on board. But right now, it's just so far out of left field that I'm trying to just. I honestly haven't not even put too much thought into it because it could be anything for all we know.
Right. I wished he would have maybe visualized it in a different way, but it's not it's not something that takes me out of the reality of the show or anything. I just think because we had Cheryl Lee, on the payroll, you might as well have made some new footage rather than use the recycled Fire Walk With Me footage. But maybe there's a reason for that. We don't know yet.
Hal, you're not a real fan.
I know. I hate everything.
You are going to turn in your Lynch card right now. You're done, and you're not allowed to watch the rest of the show.
Don't let them know I didn't like Inland Empire either.
Now, there's been a few comments saying this, and obviously I don't have an actual answer for you, but I do kind of have a theory. A lot of people are saying that Ben was just practicing his mojo again by saying, you know, Beverly, do you want to have dinner with me? And then because Beverly wasn't in the room. But I say poo-poo to that. I think that she is in voice distance from his office, because we know that from episode 1 when he just said Beverly and she came in. So I even though she wasn't in the room, I do think he asked her to dinner through the open door.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could go either way. I could care less.
Yeah, could be either way.
I mean, it could be either way, but I don't think. But there's a 50-50 chance. It's not just a one way looking at it.
Right.
At this moment here.
But it could be somebody that was quitting smoking, just, you know, putting an unlit cigarette in their mouth and just taking a drag without it actually being lit. He could have just been going, you know, can you have dinner with me? It's like old patterns, you know, he's trying to fight. Right.
DFAC says, I'm not counting on Cooper becoming himself into the last episode at the pace we're going. I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors, but I've heard rumors about a lot of things that didn't turn out to be true. So, but I think that if you could go by the footage of what we saw on TMZ, that cannot just come out of nowhere. It has to be built up to, and we're only 8 episodes from the end. So I think if there is a thing into the Dougie, solving of the Dougie situation, I think it's going to come pretty fast. We're probably only an episode or 2 away before things kick into gear.
And when we go, we've only got 8 hours. We've got 8 hours of Twin Peaks left to go. There's a lot of storytelling time.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Although 8 hours in David Lynch time isn't quite the same thing.
But sometimes he densely packs that information in, like episode 8. That was pretty much a densely packed, even though people said, oh, nothing happened. You know, there was not a lot of dialogue in it, but the ideas were pretty dense in that episode.
Yeah, and then you get something like Inland Empire, where David Lynch can make 3 hours feel like eternity.
Right.
So, Andrew here writes, so many people on these podcasts keep having these complaints that essentially amount to, well, I have ideas for the show and David didn't use them, therefore this show is bad.
I got idea, man.
I don't think for one instance that's us at all. I've never said that. I've said that I'm incredibly open-minded as to where the show goes. I just want to feel like it's in sure hands, and I feel like we have been. That's all I've said. And people have said to me, if the ending's terrible, would you be disappointed? I don't care about the ending. I just care that it feels like we're at a resolution of some sort. At least, even if it's a pause until another movie or another season or a book or the final dossier, whatever. I just want to feel like we're at some sort of stopping point and not a cliffhanger stopping point. That's all.
Unless they announce season 4, and then I'll be happy with the cliffhanger.
Well, again, I mean, it's not so much what is done; it's how it's done. Right? I mean, it's tone is everything.
Everything has exceeded my expectations so far.
Me too.
Dramatically exceeded them.
Me too.
So I don't see how it's going to go off the rails and go completely wrong at this point. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I would just personally like to maybe see Nadine do something other than just watch Dr. Amp on TV.
Now, I think you know what I was thinking today, because of the log lady's speech in the last episode, I really think she's going to be in more and more. I think she might be I just really think they're going to use her a lot more as things build to a climax. I think she's going to have a lot of key speeches like that as we go.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that she was great in episodes 1 and 2, and then I thought they'd bring her back for like the last one.
Yeah.
So when she popped up in this one, and again, there was quite a few people who predicted that the log lady would say the line "Laura is the one," and I was kind of hesitant on that because I was like, they're really going to bring her back now? I thought they would save her for the end, and they might, as you said, they might bring her back more and more. Chris says Nadine's shop is at 112. Whose shop is at 119? And let's see here. A lot of people telling us that they felt that episode 10 was the darkest and most disturbing episode of Twin Peaks they've ever seen, which is interesting.
I kind of got that feel on the rewatch too, where it was just like that was deep and dark. You know, a lot of heavy violence.
True. But I don't know. Maybe I've just seen a tremendous amount of violent movies and stuff like that, because I felt like it was still pretty held back compared to what Lynch has done in the past, you know. But
well, yeah, I mean, you can't compare anything to Maddie's death scene. I mean, that was the most brutal thing that anybody has ever seen. So yeah, I mean, this stuff here was not dark compared to that.
Yeah,
it was awful. But I mean, David Lynch has already given us the darkest thing, like the darkest murder scene. So
that's true. Yeah,
Maddie's be a little bit different.
Maddie's death scene was truly scary. I think that maybe was the difference. These scenes of violence were, gave you a feeling of revulsion, whereas Maddie's death scene had that plus a real scary aspect. So, I haven't been scared by these scenes so much as just revolted by them, so that's kind of a different feel.
And there were so many things happening there too, with slowing it down, with the change of lighting and the spotlight, and ending with the Julie Cruz song, and seeing the giant and Bobby and all these things. It was an experience. It wasn't just a scene that we watched. It was, this is something that shook all of us to our core watching the show. It changed everything from that point. So,
well, it also felt like theater. We even so much that we had the drapes and the presentation of like Truman and Cooper and the log lady coming into the roadhouse, sort of like going into a dinner theater, sitting at the table, log lady's eating her peanuts or whatever, and the show changes. And people.
I think we're going to get more of that stuff, like the killing of Maddie. I think we're going to feel that again as these episodes go on.
So.
I think as we hit October 1st and 2nd, whatever's going to happen on those dates in the show, I think things are going to get truly scary and truly weird.
Yeah, that's scary, considering that 14 people have already been killed in this show. Yeah, I saw this thing online the other day, and I want to share it with the viewers. I know that Hal and Mandy here have already seen it, but I'm going to use it as the thumbnail. There's a picture of David Lynch, and it says, "Every time someone complains about the new show, I cut another Audrey Horne scene."
That was great. That's my favorite meme so far of season 3. That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And then obviously we've just gotten just a tons of support, as you were saying, Hal, from people saying, don't let the haters get to you. You guys are still the best Twin Peaks channel on YouTube.
We love you. We love you. We love you.
We love you. Yeah, we love you right back. Nick, great podcast. We really can't predict anything anymore. No, I agree. I the thing is, though, some people got really irked at us, Mandy, because we discussed, at the end of part 10, wouldn't it have been cool if the music disappeared and, a spotlight went on and then Laura was there. We were just fans having fun with an idea and speculation. It wasn't like we were saying, hey, he didn't give us this, so therefore we reject what he gave us. We weren't saying that at all. We were just saying, hey, wouldn't it have been cool if that happened?
Mm-hmm.
But I think
exactly.
I think
when we get on here and say, I haven't seen Big Ed, and so I'm canceling my subscription, now you can hate us. But until that day, give us a break.
I went on the Twin Peaks Worldwide Facebook page the other day, and I wrote just all in caps, "Where's Audrey?" and it got like 500 likes, and there was the big discussion of like, we want Audrey, who cares, or we'll see her in time, and it's not. But it's interesting how 2 words can provoke that many people. It just goes to show you how personal this show is to people, and how on edge people are. I don't think people were on edge episodes 3 and 4. I think people are on edge now because we got 8 episodes to go. We're on the back half. So I think everything going up, like episodes or part 5 and 6 or whatever, they were saying, oh, we're building to something, and we definitely are. But I think now that we're coming down the backside of that roller coaster, I think people are getting real nervous. Like, oh my God, does he have enough time to adequately end this? Or are we just going to be, was this just a collection of scenes that Frost and Lynch threw at us? And now we're just left with, piecing the puzzle together.
All we're left with is the final dossier.
Which, let's be honest here, Frost is not going to use that book to wrap up everything because most people are not going to read it. Right. If you think every single person who is watching the show is going to buy that book and read it, you think again. Only a fraction of those fans.
And that they would somehow make you do that in order to be satisfied with what they show you on the series. No, that's just going to be a cherry on top kind of thing. But
exactly,
it's not going to be necessary to the show's answers or non-answers.
So I just want to end today's discussion on kind of a thought-provoking note. Usually I try to end it with a laugh and a smile, and maybe we'll still do that. But I think this is something that is worth addressing, considering what happened this week. There is a very good article that just got posted. It's by this guy named Mike McGranahan, and he writes this article called "Christopher Nolan may be Hollywood's weakest filmmaker." But
I thought that was M. Night Shyamalan.
But I don't want to address this in terms of Christopher Nolan. I want to address this in terms of David Lynch. Like, if you saw that headline, right, what would happen? Again, we barely said anything, if you can even call it negative, about episode 10, and we just got wrung through the ringer for that. Imagine if we came on and said David Lynch is the weakest filmmaker in Hollywood history. But I want to address it because I think it's very important, and that this is what the author writes. I'm gonna change it from Christopher Nolan to David Lynch just so you guys know. But it says, let's get something. Let's
now people will tune in right at this point, Cameron, and this is all they'll hear you say. Yeah. And they won't have the context.
Yeah,
you've got to be careful.
No, we're not live. So let's get something out of the way. That headline is utter nonsense. David Lynch is far from being Hollywood's weakest filmmaker. But here's the question. Why did you read this article? Were you curious to see a well-reasoned, intelligent, and provocative opinion expressed by someone who makes a living assessing movies? Were you open to hearing a different point of view regarding a prominent figure in cinema? If so, congratulations, you are a mature and thoughtful adult. How about the rest of you? Were you planning to hate read this? In the 2 seconds it took to click the link and wait for the page to load, were you revving up and trying to formulate the devastating insults that would shame whatever moron wrote it? If that's the case, stop it. You're doing it wrong. You are killing the discussion of film online. And then it continues down here saying, if your first instinct is to threaten to harm someone or encourage them to harm themselves simply because someone has a different opinion of the movie or TV show you're watching, you need to seek professional help immediately. You're sick. What kind of person becomes so unglued over one publicly expressed opinion of a movie or TV show that he or she feels the need to become aggressive to a stranger? In bold letters, that's not normal. But if you wouldn't go that far, but would hurl insults, you're not a bad person, but you are a bad fan. Any art is meant to be discussed and debated. Dissent, disagreement, and analysis are an essential and vital ingredient. Trying to suppress those things does an immense disservice to the film or TV show you supposedly love. You are not a better fan for trying to take down someone who disagrees with you. You are a worse fan, and if you truly love the movie or TV show, you'd welcome honest and open exploration of its merits and flaws. You're not offering anything of substance. Any true fan should be able to defend their beloved movie and TV show with grace, offering up thoughtful rebuttals or worthwhile insights. Calling names and issuing threats only reveals that you don't have the intellectual capacity to add anything of value. You're the problem, not the speaker or writer. They've got something and you've got nothing. Conversations about movies needs to become more civil and respectful online. It's getting to the point where the trolls are taking over, and that's a shame. The internet is a valuable tool for connecting to people all over the world, and so is this podcast, who share your interests. Insularity is not healthy, though. This idea applies to other things other than film, of course, but the hostility seems to be particularly rampant on that count. It needs to stop. Your life will not be worse if a writer or podcast dislikes any comic book movie or any movie or TV show that fails to appreciate a David Lynch or Christopher Nolan picture in the way you think they should. The bottom line is as simple as 5 words: grow up or shut up. I agree.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Here, here.
So, all right, guys, on that note, let's wrap this up. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Mandy, for joining me. Really appreciate it. Taking your precious time out of your weekend to talk with me. Hal, you're going to be back tomorrow with me.
I'll be there, man. I'll be there.
We're going to be
enjoy part 11.
Yes, exactly. There's fire where we're going, and hopefully that won't have to do with our podcast.
And hopefully there'll be some fire so we don't have to say, there was no fire.
Hey, there was no fire in Fire Walk With Me, so I asked for a refund.
That's right.
When you have a movie called Fire Walk With Me, I expect an opening credit sequence like Wild at Heart. Bursts of flames and fire everywhere.
Yeah.
All I got was a snowy TV screen.
Walking in the fire. There was no fire to walk in.
Even Buffy walks through the fire. Laura couldn't do that.
Nobody was walking with anybody. There was no fire.
No. It's ridiculous. You know, the movie should have been called Twin Peaks, The Threads Will Be Torn, Mr. Palmer. That's what I think. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to like these videos and share them. And please subscribe to the channel. Thank you again. And we will see you next time. Take care.